Welcome in, Zenless Proxy, it's your boy Josh, and today is an auspicious day. We get to talk about the Zenless Zone Zero 1.7 banners, and now the fully realized 2.0 drip marketed characters of the Yun faction. Yes, I am so excited, and this is a video that you guys have been waiting for quite some time. I know Twitch chat has been asking me and dying me, you know, a couple people on Twitter as well have been asking me, YouTube comments have been asking me, Josh, what do you think of the Yun faction? How or do they fit into the ecosystem as Zenless Zone Zero? And should I be pulling for them? Or should I be pulling for 1.7 characters? Those are the questions that we are going to answer today, folks. But really quickly, make sure you guys do your part. Make sure you guys like the video right now. Okay, we're here to give you guys the best information possible, as well as comment down below which of these characters just really excites you first off, you know, just based off of looks, based off of initial aesthetics, which one really pops out to you. I'm not gonna lie, of course, Yishwen for me, but Paneiho is, I love me some pandas. So let's firstly go with the headliners. Let's go with the Yun faction. And I'm not gonna lie, folks, I'm not gonna lie, Yishwen is looking absolutely busted here. Now, if you guys could take a look at the screen, you guys can see that Yishwen is running both a new subclass of element and a potential subclass or even a new class entirely of agent or weapon type or whatever you want to call it in history, which has only occurred once. We've only seen one character really defy the meta and utilize a subclass of element, aka Miyabi, aka Frost. And because of that, we got to see some really cool interactions and how they would evolve the elemental archetype of sorts to be able to make it something greater than is already pre-established within Zenless Zone Zero. And I think this is Zenless Zone Zero's MO. They're going to utilize these subclass of factions or subclass of elements or subclass of characters to be able to create this separation and distinction between these Void Hunter level characters and the more street level or, you know, just the more average class of characters. Just because within the greater lore of Zenless Zone Zero, 90% of the characters that we actually get to play with are just street level. They're just either really stronger, like, you know, superhumans, but they're not really like, you know, they're not crazy, like, you know, mystical level or magic level characters like we see in like Genshin, like we see in HSR. Like HSR, all of them are crazy magic, right? They all just use magic and like crazy, you know, dragons to blow things up. Like that does not exist in Zenless Zone Zero, with the exception of now, again, Miyabi with her Cursed Blade, Talus, and then Yishwen with her potential ink mystic arts usage and whatnot, which supposedly is tied to potential quantum or etheric undertone powers that I feel like we're going to explore in 2.x, which I'm very, very excited about. With a new subclass of character or agent type, I'm very, very cautious. First off, I want to make this clear. Subclassing and, you know, this higher archetype of character could spell that she is one of the best characters in the game. But I also want to dispel a lot of this hopium of sorts that she is going to be even that much greater than Miyabi. I'm not terribly sure right now about Yishwen's kit, and again, I don't look at leaks, so all I, you know, can talk about is the information that we have in front of us. And according to, you know, the research that we've done, aside from her new subclass of agent, we know that she's a subclass of ether. And currently right now, ether is in a really good spot offensive wise. We take a look at Ju, who, you know, is kind of falling off just a little bit. However, with the right teammates, she can still flourish very well. And then of course, the new ether anomaly character that is Viven, we'll talk about a little bit more back at the tail end of this video, who is actually really strong coverage wise, and with her blooms is able to really give you a good spread and good coverage horizontally with the anomaly class in its entirety. So now going towards Yishwen being a subclass ether unit, we can expect her to be absolutely busted and to potentially take the dot aspect of ether, because if you take a look at Miyabi, it took the crit from the freeze and the shatter to a whole new level, utilizing the attack for Shatter, or excuse me, for Frost, so too could we take Ether and manipulate that into a whole new thing, maybe, you know, setting up a Bloom as its own damage type against, or sorry, away from Disorder, could actually be towards the benefit of these new Ether line of characters, or this new Anomaly line of characters that can use a Bloom. Well, I don't want to make any presumptions that she actually interacts with the Bloom at all, but just because she is an Ether subclass archetype, that means she could. So I'm very, very excited about that. All in all, Yishwen being a Void Hunter level investigator, I don't care if she's a Void Hunter or not, but the matter of fact is that because they're creating this subclass of character, whether it be her element and or her agent type, this spells very, very, very good for Yishwen, and that they are looking to make this character a staple for your account. If you take a look at Genshin's history, there are only so many characters that can really define an account. You take a look at the Kazuos of the world. You take a look at the more modern day Nahidas and Farinas and Mavuikas of the world, right? These Arconian level characters are incredibly, incredibly strong, right? Of course, you have the slew of other characters like Arlecchino, Nuvalet, you know, now Varessa here in 5.5 and going into 5.6 and 5.7, we could see Skirk very, very soon, right? But when you take a look at defining characters, really just flagship characters, you always want to pick them up, 100%. If you could only pick up one character in a faction, in a patch year, in a region, whatever, you want to pick up the flagship character because they are a representation of the ideology and the concept of that faction, of the region, of the archetype, of the class. So too, will you want to pick up Yishwen as she is the defining character. She's the quote unquote leader, right, of the Yunkoi Summit. So she is going to be almost a must pull. I don't think anybody can get away from that, depending on whether she is a lot more offensive. Maybe she might have even some support capabilities. Maybe she's like a dual offensive type, both, you know, anomaly and attacker, kind of like how Miyabi is a little bit. Although Miyabi's just straight up anomaly, you could see with this new archetype that we could see either a new type of offense being introduced into the game that could have a blend of what we have, or even just introduce something new entirely. So TLDR, if you had to pick up any character from this entire list, it would be Yishwen, 100%. You know, you take a look across the board. Oh, you pick up your Miyabis, you pick up your Astro Yaos. Yishwen is that next character. Now, let's move on to the other front-running 5-star character in 2.0. That is Ju Fufu. She is absolutely adorable, and for those who are wondering, oh Josh, how do you tell if it's a 5-star or 4-star? They are animated. So if the trailer or if the teaser here is animated, then they are a 5-star S tier agent. So we'll take a look at Paneiho a little bit later. They're not animated actually. So Ju Fufu turns out to actually be a 5-star unit, and I think this is one of our very first chibi 5-stars, if I am correct. Excuse me, limited 5-stars. I know Kaleda is a 5-star, but our very first limited chibi, you know, 5-star unit. Oh no, it's Chingy. Is Chingy? Yeah, okay. You know Chingy. You know, we got Astro Yao who can sings. You know, we got Viven parasoling and, you know, tossing out ether, a lot more projectiles. So we really need a rough and tough. We've been needing this type of character, a rough and tough, you know, punch. You know, getting to grit in the grind, getting in the face of the opponents. So I'm very excited about Ju Fufu. Now, we haven't seen too much about her in its entirety, but taking a look at her archetype, she is fire stun. Oh no, why, man? What happened? Where did we go wrong? So Ju Fufu now being introduced as our next premium fire stunner brings up a very, very big question. Is she going to be more worth it? I can't talk to the kit. There's been a lot of beta leaks, and if you want to partake in the beta leaks, please, by all means, go ahead. But from what we can divulge about Ju Fufu, more than likely, she is going to be a really, really, really strong stun unit for the Yunkoi Summit characters. Now, does this include Yishwen? Hopefully. Does this include some of the other characters that are teased around Yunkoi Summit? Hopefully. I really think that Ju Fufu being that, you know, premier faction stunner could spell well for the entirety of the ecosystem of 2.0. Just because when you take a look at the previous stunners, right? Trigger, sure, works well with Sambi, but you take a look at Lighter, and Lighter barely works with any, if at all, none of the Sons of Caledon. And then you take a look at Kaleda Belobog. Kaleda Belobog doesn't work with any of the Belobogians. But that was an earlier stage of development of the game, I understand. So now I really do hope that they really put an onus and a focus on making these characters work, not only sure with other characters, within the entire cast, but they make them such that there is that like one kink or that one little extra ability or niche that puts them over the top as that premium Yunkui Summit stun character. So I'm very, very excited about Ju Fufu. I really do hope that she excels, just because, granted, yes, she would be in quote-unquote direct competition with Lighter for a fire stun spot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they actually have the same coverage. Very much the same as like, the Bernice Evelyn conversation. Again, they're both fire offensive characters, but one is anomaly, one is attacker. They do their damage in different ways, they interact with different characters differently. So Ju Fufu, I assume, even though she is a fire stun character, has barely any interactions that Lighter would have generally provided you. Which, again, if you are planning on playing for Lighter, we'll get to him in a little bit, I think you'll just be fine with pulling for him and skipping Ju Fufu. But I digress. Ju Fufu, until we know the full kit, I think she's going to be a little bit more niche. If she turns out to be a more universal fire stun character, then Lighter's out of a job, which is super unfortunate because I don't think they would do Lighter that dirty. He's a great character already, right? 75% fire and ice damage bonus. You can't, it's very hard to top that universal effect. So we'll see what Ju Fufu has to offer. Next is a character that I'm a little bit underwhelmed with, and that is Paneiho. And, earlier in the video, I was very excited about Paneiho. I really, really like this character. Panda, right? Everyone loves a panda. But we got to take a look at what he's providing on the table. And contrary to what we might think, Jack Black is not playing Paneiho. I know this is super funny, but unfortunately, a boy can only dream. I thought this was funny. But here we go with Paneiho. The new 4-star A-tier unit is coming to us as a physical defense. Now, this is a huge letdown for me. This is a huge letdown for a lot of people who are really excited to see some new archetypes come into play in 2.0. And what I mean by that is that there are certain few archetypes and matching combos of characters that we haven't gotten yet. AKA, very, very clearly, instead of a physical defense character, we would have liked a physical support character. We would have loved a physical support character. And if it was physical support and providing, a little bit more assistance to physical, that would have really, really helped to bring up the entirety of the physical class. Maybe Paneiho is not going to be that unit. Maybe there's a unit down the road that is going to be a physical support unit. But we were looking forward to that character. Paneiho coming as a physical defense character is quite the letdown, just because defense has been very, very, very middling. How does Paneiho expand from the defense class? What we've seen from defensive characters in the past, especially with a character like Caesar, providing buffing. So instead of just being a defensive character, she provides a shield and she provides a mega buff. The 1000 attack buff. Paneiho is not going to provide 1000 attack or whatever, I don't believe. But what he could provide is maybe some sort of healing, some sustain, maybe some debuffs here and there, maybe be in line with a character like Seth. And as long as he's better than Seth, I think we're headed in a good trajectory for the A-tier units. Just because the A-tiers haven't been the most impactful. And, again, Pulchra, comparatively to Trigger, is barely even half the character. But, in terms of coverage, in terms of typing, you get a really, really solid contributing to a team with Pulchra, with Aftershock. So I'm very curious to see how Paneiho either takes some, items from the Yunkui faction and or makes it his own and or provides some support capabilities for said Yunkui faction characters, whether that be Yishwen. I don't think he's going to support Ju Fufu. I don't think that's possible. But taking a look at Paneiho and Ju Fufu, we have a stunner and we have a defense character. we will more than likely see a team attack with Paneiho and Ju Fufu, which is pretty exciting. You know, we've been wanting some more team attacks or team combo attacks specific to certain characters. So like Kaleda and Ben. Kaleda can, you know, hop off of Ben, you know, Ben's pillar, and then do a larger stun attack while Ben also switches in. It's a very, very cool interaction and very cool how they animated it. I would like to see a Paneiho and Ju Fufu combo attack. Hopefully. More than likely we'll see it. I assume that's why they put these two together, and of course, you know, they obviously look great together. So in my expectations of Paneiho, he is going to be quite budget. I don't believe he's going to be that insane of a unit. If he is, God forbid, we get crazy power creep in Zenless Zone Zero. They have not indicated at all that the Unicorn Summit is going to crazily power creep any of the characters, with the exception of course, again, the singular unit that is Yishwen. Let's take a look back the entirety of this cast for the next 9 weeks. No, 11 weeks, right? As of this recording, we're still in Viven's banner. We're going to head into Hugo's very soon. So let's firstly talk about the 1.7 characters in regards and respect to our newly introduced faction characters. Viven is strong, and because she is anomaly, she gets to exceed the boundaries of a single team or a single archetype. As far as anomaly, we get to see anomaly, support, stun. No, not really stun, but nah. Anomaly, support, and even anomaly. This spells really, really good for the anomaly class because they get to build off of each other. And unlike Dot from the Game Over, HSR, where Kafka and Black Swan get absolutely power crept, if you were to pick up any character down in this line after Yishwen, it would have to be Viven. Viven is incredibly versatile. You take a look at Bernice, how she was one of, if not the only, you know, versatile characters that provided off-field fire application. Again, as long as you weren't resistant to fire, you could probably find a place for Bernice in that team. Or, you know, again, in regards to just overall anomaly teams or just generalist teams, you can find a place for Bernice. So too, can you find a place with Viven with most comps, mono ether, you know, double anomaly for every element, you know, triple anomaly, and so on and so forth. Viven's type coverage is incredibly strong in terms of how much, you know, she's able to interact with, as well as how much she's able to combat within the meta. Ether is only going to get stronger, and so too will anomaly always get stronger as we keep adding anomaly characters. The strength and the amount of permutations you can actually create in terms of team compositions grows even that much more. Anomaly class is just generally one of the stronger classes, and Viven is leading the pack. Next, we take a look at Hugeous Vlad. Now, Hugeous Vlad is quite the niche character, but man, is he strong. Now, I've been doing a little bit of math on him. I've been doing my early access guide, you know, research on him. I have a little bit of time before we actually release that, I believe in about a week or so plus, which, you know, Hugo has been changed a little bit from his initial base kit. And for those who have been keeping up with the beta, you know, hey, you know those changes. But when it comes to Hugo Vlad and his kit right now in the demo, I'll be honest, it is quite niche. You really would like double stun. The double stun allowing you for, 500 plus extra attack, pretty much covers half of what you would be able to with a support character, aka the Caesars, aka the Astro Yaos. So thereby which you actually, instead of adding in more attack for one singular attack, you get Totalize, where Totalize is able to actually utilize the stun, you know, cut the stun short, condense it, make a big boom attack, and then reset the stun again so that you can do multiple stuns. And that's the goal of Hugo Vlad, which is really, really cool because we haven't had a character, an attacker character, that really pushes the boundaries and really synergizes with stuns in such a way. So now when it comes to Hugeous Vlad, and let's say a lighter, you're going to want to pick those two up if you haven't already as the premium team. Yet, if you look at other, you know, non-premium teams, you could take a look at Hugo Vlad, Kaleda, and Lycon. You could take a look at Hugo Vlad, Lycon, Pulchra. You could take a look at a slightly more premium team, which is lighter Trigger. You could take a look at, of course, Lycon, trigger, and then of course lighter trigger. God, what, Lycon lighter? Come on, man. But of course, the premium team right now suspected is supposedly Lycon lighter Hugo Vlad, which is good for the ladies who, you know, want their mono men team. And actually, you know, the synergy is actually really, really strong, being, you know, having lighter as the backup to the primary Lycon stun. So Lycon is going to charge attack, he's going to EX, and then you parry into lighter. He does the punches. EX is to set up your Hugo Vlad for your totalize, and then you get into totalize, you recycle that whole generalized rotation over again. The synergy there is really, really, really strong. But again, you must have a comp or a team box that is conducive to stuns and conducive to attacking agents. So again, having lighter, having Lycon built, having you know, the secondaries of Kaleido or Pulchra. These units, if you do not have them, Hugo Vlad is not going to be the character for you. And you're going to have a very, very tough time bringing out the best of Hugo Vlad, especially since he's already a hard character to build in the first place. We've done a lot of calculations already. He needs about 80 to 85 crit rate. He is insanely, insanely needy as a character. But if you can get to those, you know, threshold points, he can do massive damage. And also, if you want to invest into his Mindscapes, his M1, I believe, is absolutely busted. M2 gives you the 12% crit rate, I believe. So then an additional 12%. So you're running 70 or 75% crit rate instead of 80 to 85, which is way more doable. Allows you to flex, you know, your substats into attack. I digress. That's a lot of math. Don't worry about it. But just in generalities, if you're going for Hugo Vlad, you better go for him. You better go from hard, because if you're using your resources for Hugo Vlad, that's taken away from your budget of Yishwen and Ju Fufu. Lastly, the rerun characters. Jane Doe, in lieu of the 2.0 characters, I'll be honest, Yishwen being an ether character, and in my eyes, what I thought when I saw Yishwen was the Hersher of the Void. I thought she was going to be physical. IMO. I wish she was physical. I thought she was going to be the physical, you know, subclass elements, just like Miyabi with Frost. I thought there was going to be a physical version, you know, a physical corrupted element. But just so happens it's ether. That's unfortunate. So we're leaning more towards an ether-oriented meta going into 2.0. Does this spell good for Jane? Yes, actually. The reason why is because with the interactions between Anomaly, we like to pair either dot with dot or dot with crit. And ether is very, very clearly the dot element. So pairing the crit with that should be perfectly fine, right? If we were headed into, let's say, an ice meta, physical isn't very good in ice meta. You take a look at ice metas, they tend to usually benefit ether and electric, which is quite curious. And very, very rarely, you know, during the Sons of Caladan stint, we saw electric and fire together. So now looking at this and the spread of what we have, I think we're going to see ether and physical be highlighted in the next 2 months, 3 months. So you could see Jane actually getting a lot of playing time when it comes to DA runs, when it comes to Shiyu. She's probably going to get some things to actually benefit her, which should spell good for you guys in the next, again, 2 to 3 months. But is she worth it now to go for versus the 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 characters? I'll be honest, she is not. We're going to get more anomaly characters. We're going to get stronger anomaly characters. We're going to get stronger just units in general that could probably provide more for your box than what Jane Doe, unfortunately, can bring. She was introduced in what, 1.1, 1.2? It's tough. You're starting to see the eclipsing of these older DPS characters. Ellen Joe already with Hugo Vlad, right? I mean, if it wasn't with Miyabi, it's definitely with Hugo Vlad. With Juyen, Yishwen blows her out of the water. Even if Yishwen turns out to be a defensive support character, I'm pretty sure her damage will probably be higher than Juyen's for crying out loud. Which is probably not the case. I don't know what this new subclass of agent is, but we'll see. I think we are going to see the resurgence of ether. We're going to see the resurgence of physical within the new 2.0 region, which I'm very excited about because they've been needing to balance 2.0 for a very, very long time. And even with the consideration of Jane Doe getting potential buffs, you know, for those who've been following the discourse around Zenless Zone Zero, the dev talk in particular, they said that they were going to be working on bringing up older characters, aka most of the physical characters. They've been adding Lost Void buffs to Corrin, Necromata, Jane Doe, right? Even Asher Yao is getting, the Miku beam, which could really help her out, just giving her a little bit more of a dynamic range of gameplay versus just switching her on and off field for, it's the singing and idyllic cadenza. That's boring, okay? So the Miku beam could really help her out. So 2, just Jane Doe, potentially need a little bit more oomph, such that she could be a lot more competitive for 2.0. If you believe in that, go for Jane Doe. If you already have Jane Doe, M1, M2 could be a really good investment if you guys are willing to vertically invest a little bit higher. For me, I just have Jane Doe and W Engine. I'm sitting pretty. I think I'm okay. She already served her stint for my first year of playthrough in Zenless Zone Zero, and if I never see her play again, no skin off my back. And lastly, Lighter. Lighter being a stun and support hybrid with his ability to buff Fire and Ice with 75% is no joke. No joke. He is incredibly valuable as a character. And just overall, you see him being needed by Hugo Vlad. You see him being needed by Evelyn. You see him being needed by Ellen Joe. You see him being needed by even Miyabi comps. You could even see Miyabi, Lighter, Lucy comps, and they actually do relatively decently if there's, Fire, Ice, DA runs and whatnot. It's been effective. So just being a character that can interact with Fire and Ice characters in such a way that he just gives a straight up buff, total buff to the damage, it's just absolutely bonkers. And his flexibility as a sub stun unit, right? He's not an on-field unit. He defensive assist, muda punch, and then E skills gets the fuck out of there. That plays to his benefit because it allows other characters, especially with the main frontrunner characters, the DPS characters, to shine. Lighter, aside from Yishwen, aside from Viven, I believe Lighter is the next character to get. Unless Ju Fufu proves to be the better and more universal fire stun character, which you would really have to upsell Ju Fufu. I don't think Ju Fufu is going to be working outside the niche of Yunkoi Summit characters. I think she's going to be a little bit more niche for a fire stun character. They wouldn't do Lighter dirty. Hopefully. So Lighter is my bronze medal winner for the podium of 1.7 to 2.0 characters. Man, that was a lot of yapping, but hopefully a little bit of gameplay and extra B-roll and stuff kept you guys engaged. What do you guys think about the new drip marketing, and what do you guys think about the new cast of characters and somewhat returning characters? What do you think of the next 9 to 11 months of Zenless Zone Zero? What do you guys think of the next 9 to 10 or 11 weeks of Zenless Zone Zero? This, going into summer, is honestly peak cinematic game. I don't think we've ever seen more hype for Zenless Zone Zero than we have with Yishwen. Maybe with Miyabi, but I think the hype is even grown that much larger now that, more people have been starting to give Zenless Zone Zero a chance. I'm very excited to give you guys more coverage on this game, as well as more insider information, as well as some cool other extra fun content around the game. My next video will probably be, what's my next video? I think it's probably Hugo Vlad demo. That'll come out in like a day or two. So, hey, make sure to subscribe and go check out that video when it comes out. Thank you guys so much for joining today, and let me know down in the comments who you guys are going to pick up. Who's your number 1 pickup? I'm your lead on the Zone Zero Proxy, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.